All right, everybody. Sorry for being a little late today. We had some technical difficulties. Welcome to the podcast of the new branded version of the Freedom Fam. We have President-elect Kit Kat, Conservative Ant, and Officer Ash as our guest today. How you doing, Officer Ash?
Doing wonderful, man. Just another day in paradise, I guess, or something like that.
Something like that, right?
Is that what paradise is? This the paradise?
I get so confused these days. It gets really complicated.
Yeah.
Officer Ash, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I started a TikTok as a cop back a little over a year ago. I somehow garnered like maybe 20,000 followers, and that in turn turned into me becoming a police whistleblower. I discovered some things happening in our department that were just outrageous, and after I blew the whistle, I actually found out just how bad it was. But tried to report it, and it was omitted from the internal affairs investigation. My words were changed from the reports and stuff, and so at the age of 25, I looked at my 3 years in policing, and I was like, you know what? I guess I'm gonna post on TikTok about it, and it blew up, thankfully. And I started a series called why good cops don't say anything. They do, and that kind of was the first viral kind of video. After that, I posted the first TikTok on May 4th of 2020. I was terminated on May 11th of 2021, or I'm sorry, of 2020. So here we are in 2021, and now I have 170,000. I serve on the board of a nonprofit that protects ethical police officers around the country. I interview officers almost weekly about situations they have going on. They reach out to us for guidance anonymously. So now I'm just working with Congress now to get a national level police reform passed.
That's awesome. What kind of stuff were you? I mean, give us a couple of examples.
I have no issue with talking about it on camera. It's
good.
Because something that I tell a lot of whistleblowers is like, your attorneys are going to be like, hey, don't say anything, but don't lie. Just tell the truth, say what you know, and it's public interest. The public deserves to know. For me, it kind of started from the reason I knew that I needed to kind of reassess what was happening in our department was I went into a house fire in 2019. That was like a 3-story house fire that the homeowner had set, and got the homeowner out, who was having a mental health crisis, and her dog. Her daughter was already outside. And after the fact, they came up to me and were like, oh, you're not going to get a life-saving award. And I was like, okay. But they were like, I was like, just for kicks, why? And they were like, oh, because you carried the woman out of the burning building the wrong way. And I was like, this is kind of outrageous, right? And so I was like, whatever. Wait. So I just kept going about my business. And then what opened my eyes, that kind of set me off guard. And then I think what opened my eyes was the officer of the quarter. They gave that to an officer that went on vacation with the lieutenant to Utah that was gone for almost most of the quarter. And I was like, that's strange. And so we all started talking about it. I had supervisors tell me that they were out for my job. And I reported it up my chain of command. They wouldn't do anything about it. It just continued to get worse and worse. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm being pretty harassed here. And that kind of culminated even with the major calling me into his office in the middle of the night to scrub his carpet on my hands and knees. And I was just like, you know what? And for saying I left a stain in his carpet or something when I didn't. So because I work nights and he works days. But so regardless,
you literally were on your hands and knees cleaning the carpet?
Yep. But is that, or I get written up for the 33rd time, which I realized at that point, I'd been written up for things that weren't policy violations. So now I have, without going too much into depth about this part, I just because of who I'm speaking about, I have verifiable proof from certain level supervisors that are willing to go into the court system and say yeah, that happened, that they were told that either I got this stain that I didn't create that was non-existent out of this carpet, or or I would be reprimanded, and if they didn't make me do that they'd be reprimanded. And so they went on the record to say how they tried to write me up for all kinds of stuff. I was investigated for having too many citizen commendations. So at our police department, if you went to the website and submitted a contact form and were like, hey, he did a great job, then you got a citizen commendation. They investigated me for having too many. I didn't know until the investigation was already closed because they had gone to people's houses
Wait,
and actually
for having too many good reports.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they actually went to people's houses. No, for sure. So they went to people's houses and asked them if they actually wrote them. And they did. And so they couldn't do anything. So I found out that after the investigation had been completed, they pulled IP addresses, worked with IT, all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I was just like, this is getting crazy. So I was like, I'm just going to get a lawyer. I'm just going to get a lawyer. I'm tired of this. There was a few other things. I've been accused of doing stuff in my patrol car by a lieutenant when I wasn't even at work. I was like at a Christmas party. They're like, why are you driving erratically in your patrol car in the city? And I was like,
when did you notice that it started? Like, to you, what do you think the triggering event was?
The almost immediately when I started working there, and that kind of was uncovered later on, and as to why. So where that led to was I mentioned I was going to get an attorney, and all of a sudden I was placed under investigation. And they wouldn't really tell me why, and I was just like, this is crazy. And so I showed up to the investigation, the internal affairs, with my attorney, who they told me I could bring, and they looked at my attorney and said, actually, you know what? Never mind. Go home. Like your attorney's not allowed. And they brought me into this interview room, and I, right before then, had met with an officer who revealed what was truly going on. That the lieutenant had pretty much had like a sex kind of ring going on at the department. A male lieutenant with male officers, some of which were married, and they were exchanging nudes and stuff like that for commendations. We ended up later uncovering how they would talk about who they're going to hire, and they and it goes as far as to be like, hey, they're like text messages where they're talking back and forth in this group, which they named the fuckboy group. And so they're talking about things like, oh, do you think, should we hire this person? I think he looks really good. Look at that bulge in his pants, like from like his Facebook photos and stuff. And like, they were like, what? And these officers were like, just kind of like stuck in this group message with the lieutenant at that point. Cause what are you going to do? If you go against him, you're going to be written up for things. So, because like, I wasn't in that group. I never sent anything to him. I never gave in to anything like that. I never went and tried to hang out with him outside of work. I didn't care. Like, it wasn't going to happen. And so you look at what was happening to officers like me who were getting written up for things that weren't even policy violations, like made up, fabricated things. So they knew to stay in line. And so, they were talking about, I think I'm going to hire him. I like him. Oh, we're not going to hire any women. Them texting, or the lieutenant texting officers during the workday, hey, when can I eat your ass today? Like, and let's talk about, this is your supervisor's supervisor, right? Like, this isn't just like your sergeant or like this is your boss's boss. So like, at that point, you're going to the major. Well, we found out that the major, who's above the lieutenant, stole 50 guns from his last department he worked at. He was deputy chief of the Douglasville Police Department and was found in possession of 50 firearms, a pair of brass knuckles, and maybe some cash out of the evidence locker.
How was he still working?
Well, that's the question, right? So then they asked him why he did it. And this is my favorite part of this report, because I always knew this man was just an absolute idiot. He goes and says, I was going to make a gun memorial for the department. So you took 50 guns out of evidence without asking anybody? Okay, all right. And a pair of brass knuckles. I don't know where maybe they was going to hold the guns up. I don't know. But like, it was just like, you're an idiot. And like, so then he's the one that came to my house and put me under investigation. When I left the room, he started taking pictures on his little old phone. I think it was a flip phone, but he started taking pictures of like my bookcase and stuff and texting it to people. I had a camera in there. And so I caught him doing it, and like he like puts it under his armpit like a dummy, and like he hits the camera button and the shutter goes off. And so you hear it. And so I come in the room and confront him, and he's like, yeah, I took a picture of your bookcase because I saw you wrote a book. Maybe I was gonna buy it. I don't think he ever bought the book, Gus. But I'm not sure he could read.
You should deliver a signed copy of one.
Yeah.
With a stolen firearm. I should deliver it. So just be like XOXO. So
XOXO.
Like, yeah, gossip cop. So it was just crazy because like you're looking at all this and you're like, okay. And so I'm finally like, what did they bring me in for? Like, here we go. Like if they're going to bring me into an internal affairs investigation, they're desperate. There has to be something. They're like, were you speeding in your patrol car with your lights and sirens on in your own neighborhood outside of our city? And I was like, huh? I was like, I thought there was gonna be like something crazy. Like I thought there was gonna be like, oh, you stole 50 guns or something like just made up. No, they were like, that's what this was all about. They were like, when you were asked about it with your supervisors, you said that you didn't do that. I was like, no, I didn't. I did turn my stuff on. Like before I went to work, like a good cop, I would check all my stuff because I knew they were trying to write me up for stuff. Turn my lights on, make sure it works. Well, it just so happens that the young rookie dumb moment that I did have was I decided, because I knew I was in a hurry, they asked me to come in a little early and I had to go. So I was driving down the road in my neighborhood and I was like, do my lights work real quick? Turn them on and off, turn my sirens on and off. And so they said that constituted me emergency driving. And so when they asked me, they said, were you emergency driving in your neighborhood? I said, no. I said, I tested my equipment, but I wasn't emergency driving. They twisted my statement and said that I said, no, I didn't do that. And they had ring footage of me doing it, right? And when I was in the internal affairs investigation, when I was talking to them, I was like, look, I've been accused of stuff in my patrol car several times. I wanted to be accurate. I wanted to be like, hey, like this is what I did and what I didn't do. And yeah, so then they omitted all of that from my account of it. And by that time, I had coordinated with 2 other officers and we had pretty much gathered probably hundreds of text messages, things that they still don't know that we have, audio recordings of him calling people, requesting them to write complaints on me, messages where he's talking about literally word for word in this message on Snapchat about how some Asian kid just got done doing things to him and stuff. And so the power of TikTok, guys, as you guys know, is a lot of different things. But what really was interesting to me was when I started getting messages from parents. Hey, you went to my call this one day, and I want to let you know, like, I hate what they're doing to you. Keep up the good fight. My kids say that they were aware that he had inappropriate relations with the high schoolers at Dunwoody High, and I was like,
no,
the lieutenant. And so I was like, oh, this is weird. So then I got contacted by someone else. And I won't reveal who that person is, but I was contacted by someone else that knew the person that this happened to. And essentially, here's the story, guys. Right. So just remember, I was terminated because they said I was less than truthful because of me using my lights and sirens in the neighborhood on a fabricated statement.
But this what if you just wanted to light it up for a kid in a neighborhood? I see police officers do that
all the time, right? I know. Yeah, it's an asinine thing, and literally everyone that we talk about it with is like, what? But they wanted it to appear that I was untruthful. And the reason for that is obvious, because if I'm untruthful, they will go off the case law saying, oh, I can't testify in court, which they were trying to discredit me before I got with my TikTok and with everything else. They already knew I had, I think at that time, 25,000. And so they knew that which is like a third of the population of our city. So like, they were like, oh, I could, post, someone might see something. So they just wanted to discredit me. They wanted to go to the news and discredit me. So, yeah, so they were trying to head off the dragon there, and it didn't really work for them. But I got hit up by this girl one day, guys, and this young lady, and she was like, "Hey, this is crazy. I really support your page. I knew something about that lieutenant that I don't think anyone else knew. It's kind of crazy." So of course I'm like, "What do you know?"
Right.
And please tell. And so I talked to her, and she was like, "So in the middle of the night one night." And this explains actually part of my story. So in the middle of the night one night, he went behind the Best Buy doing a patrol or stuff. He was the night shift lieutenant at this time. And as per the story, he found a homeless, like 17-year-old behind the Best Buy and took him home to live with him. And that kid lived with him. So it's like, and again, for me, when I'm hearing this story, I'm like, I was terminated for what? Like, right. What are you talking about? Like, hold on. And so, like, he picked him up, and this kid, and so the girl was like, yeah, I witnessed it. I had to pick him up from that house a few times. She knew his address. So I was just like, oh, so this validates, like, okay. And she would never really give me the name of the kid because she wanted to embarrass him and stuff. But like, obviously, I think once we get to like that time, should the city not just give up by that time, I think then obviously we'll just subpoena, we'll go further with it. But it's obviously, enough for them to look at this criminally. Well, guys, I got a copy of my summary of investigation, and everything was missing, right? And they twisted my words, and I'm like, oh, this is good. I posted TikTok. I get notice that I was recommended for termination, and so I was like, oh, so what they're trying to get me to do is to resign. And what I tell a lot of not necessarily young whistleblowers, like young officers, but like new to whistleblowing, I'm like, don't resign. If they're charging you with untruthfulness, whatever you do, don't resign. Because if you resign, you're pretty much like, oh, I don't know, maybe I was untruthful. But if you fight it to the end, if you get terminated, you keep going, you're like, no, I never was. You can still testify in court one day, because they're gonna be like, weren't you? The other attorney is gonna be like, weren't you found to be untruthful? Actually, no. I did find out about a lieutenant that you might be interested to hear about if you want me to talk about that in court. But and so that's the reality. But I got recommended for termination. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know that at the time. And I was like, I think I literally I was 25, about to turn 20. Actually, no, I think at the time I was 24, about to turn 25. So crazy enough. And then, cause I just turned 26. And so I was just like, this is just crazy. And so I show up with my attorney, and they're like, you can bring your attorney. And I read the policy, and it says, you can have an attorney present. Right before I walk in, they're like, he can't speak. Talking to my attorney. I'm like, oh, this is great legal representation. My attorney is playing Simon Says. Yeah. So, so we walk in, and they twist some words. They were like, the way they got me in the final report was, they were like, when they asked you if you had done that, this is right after I had vented to them about the lieutenant in person. They were like, to the chief, and they were like, when they asked you if you had done that, and did you know that you had, or did you know that you had done that and been afraid, but you were afraid to say so? And I had just gotten done telling them how I tested my equipment. So I'm like, yes, I knew. Oh my God, for the 33rd time. Yes, I tested my equipment, and I was terrified. So I was very accurate, because but I was so scared, guys. I was like, all that speech back then, I didn't have the confidence then. Now I can. Now I know what I didn't do anything wrong. But I look back, and I'm like, they tried to really twist what I said. And so how it came out was yes, I was afraid. So what I was saying was, yes, I was afraid when they asked me that. I thought that was the question. But the chief wrote it up as, oh, he admitted that he did it. So as crazy as all that is.
That you were afraid that you were going to be caught, not that you were.
Yeah, right. I'm over here I was afraid I was going to be written up. So, and so and it echoes so many officers, stories I talk to now, but I was just like, I walk out of there, right? And I'm like, okay, well, at the very least, I just told them some of the stuff about the lieutenant that I knew. I couldn't tell them everything yet, because I knew that 2 other officers were delivering a notice to them that they were being sued the following day, and they didn't know it was coming. So it was great. And I had already gone through hundreds of messages, this lieutenant standing in a mirror, in a towel. I've seen it. I know these are photos he sent to these officers. Yeah. It's validated. So we're like, okay. So Friday or so, that was on a Wednesday. On Friday, Thursday, they got the notice. On Friday, they called in the lieutenant, or he was there. I don't really know the details of how he got there. Now remember, they drove to my house and took my gun and badge and placed me under investigation for apparently speeding in my patrol car. They let him come in to the office, and they said, "Hey, sit down." So we got this notice that we were going to be sued, and with the notice was 2 text messages out of hundreds that they still haven't seen all of them. And they were and it was pretty damning. I think it was the one that was let me eat your ass today or something. And, oh, shut up and suck my dick. That's what he was telling officers. Literally God. This one guy, and this is an officer that was totally victimized, right? Because regardless of how he kind of got roped into this, it doesn't really matter. This officer had a girlfriend that didn't know what was going on. He was practically having to live this secret life because this lieutenant was sexually stalking him. And he literally would text him and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he'd be like, take a picture of his yard, mowing my grass. Great day. And the lieutenant would be like, "Shut up and suck my dick." What? First off, that's not even a conducive conversation. So, but it's just not appropriate. It's just absolutely not appropriate. So we provide this proof to them.
Real quick, not to defer from the story.
You're totally fine.
Is this the kind of stuff that's going on in police departments nationwide that you're starting to see? Is this something that you're uncovering that people are becoming whistleblowers to, or what's the benefit
I talk to
from these officers doing this?
So I talked to officers around the country that the themes are all the same. So in some departments it's sexual harassment. In some departments that's the tool that's used. In some departments it's physical violence, use of force against the public that they try to speak out about. It's money and corruption and trying to force people. Like I have some crazy stories I'm gonna tell you in a minute that you're gonna be like, what? Like, because I'm honored to speak to these people. Like I'm just honored to speak to these people because I'm just like, here I am. I'm like, I'm just a guy that's like, why do I keep being written up? And like, they're like, you suck. And I'm just like, man, what's going on? But then now, because of what I learned, because of me going to TikTok, because of the doors have been opened for me, even just talking to you guys, like now I have the opportunity to like go and be like, hey, hey, my name's Austin. What's going on? And I have people calling me from all walks of life. I've spoken to the director of the Naval War College. They have a college program on whistleblowing, the ethics of whistleblowing, that wanted to talk to me. I've spoken to after he saw our story. I've spoken to a forensic psychologist in California that accidentally walked in on an attempted murder that the officers had set up. Like, yeah, and she was terminated too. They fired her for untruthfulness, of course, trying to discredit her. But we'll go to that story. So my point being is, so we give this evidence to them, and on Friday, so they don't take his gun and badge, right? We gave them criminal evidence of a crime being committed. They go, hey, what's this? Instead of taking his gun and badge, placing him under arrest, or at least placing him under formal investigation, they let him sit down, be buddy-buddy. They talk about it. They let him get up, walk to his own office, write his resignation letter over an hour or two, come back, and then turned in his resignation letter. They asked him a few more questions, and then they paid him through the weekend so that way he could secretly move his stuff out. So I got a call from an officer on Saturday that someone said he left crying on Friday or something. And Saturday, probably because he couldn't victimize people anymore. And on Saturday, an officer got a call that he was cleaning out his office, like secretly, like incognito as could be. So that officer, I love him to death. He goes over there, like he's like in like another car that's not his. Like I don't even know where he probably stole his car. I don't even know where his car came from. It's like someone else's car, and he's sitting there with like binoculars across from the police department, like watching the lieutenant carry his box out, crying and whatever. And they put the lieutenant's car in the garage and closed the door and lock it from like, we should have access to that garage, so no one could see it was in there. Sunday morning, by that time, I think was when he was officially down there, but sometime that following week, he was down in South Florida, moved, house up for rent, ready, out of the state. Why? Because if we did have find criminal charges, we would have taken state level warrants for him. So if he's in Florida, we can't arrest him. And that afternoon of the day that his official resignation was going through, that Monday, that afternoon, they gave me 5 minutes notice. I live 40 minutes from the police department, guys. 5 minutes. They're like, hey, we're gonna be at your house in 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. And they're like, and then they show up and they're like, give us all your uniforms. You're fired. Sign this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to sign it, but here's my uniforms. So and it's crazy. So again, they waited till he was gone to fire me. And it just kind of shows again, it's like, okay, really. And so now, we've gone through discovery with some stuff. We've really found some stuff by working with other officers and talking to people at the department still that are involved in our case and some that aren't. And they're like, we found out that he in all of this that not only was he like allowed to resign, his certification's intact. He could go be a law enforcement officer in Georgia somewhere else. Had we not blown the lid off of it, he could have just gone. Mine's still pending revocation because I was terminated because of untruthfulness. And so whenever I went to that hearing, they were like, it was so outrageous. They were like, because the government's going to always believe the government, right? They're going to think that other agencies did their diligence, right? So they're going to be like, hey, like this agency says you suck and you're going to lie. So they're going to treat you like you're a liar, right? And so you show up and I'm trying to tell this crazy story like I'm telling y'all, but, and I'm even back then stuttering, nervous as can be. But, and they're like, after I get through telling a more lightweight version of that story, they're like, well, what I gathered from that you have no remorse for lying. And I'm like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I just gave you proof I didn't lie. Like, but I learned really quickly that, again, that the system was not set up to support people like me. It was to support the government. And that's really the truth. It's just that like I don't blame somebody for immediately assuming that, that the government did the right thing, like because you work for the government. So if you know that you do the right thing and you work for the government, obviously those people might.
Right.
So so I'm still, I'm still fighting that battle, because they even tried to like ask me to repeal or to like rescind my appeal for my certification, and me and my lawyer were just like, you know what, screw it, let's keep going, let's go to the judge. Like, it may take longer, but who cares? Let's take it to the judge. On top of all the other stuff we have going on, we still do have an active investigation with the EEOC and all this other stuff. But the reality is, like I tell whistleblowers, including the one in California, it's okay to speak. Your attorneys are going to tell you not to. Why? Because they want a giant settlement. That's why. Your attorneys want to take a huge part of the settlement with none of the court costs and move on to the next case. They want to be quick about it. And it makes total sense. And they also don't want you to perjure yourself and like say something. But you're entitled not only to your opinion, but you're also entitled to free speech and protection from the government. And when you're a government employee speaking out and you're not using the traditional means, I think as long as you can show that you at least tried to fact check the things that you say, that like the burden of proof is on them, not on you.
Right.
It's not your job to make sure that everything the government does is true. It's your job to, release matters of public interest.
So do you think that any of this, I mean, maybe not in your situation, but in, other police departments nationwide, has anything to do with any type of political party affiliation, beliefs in anything that's going on in the country? I don't know, say you don't support BLM, somebody you voted for. I mean, does this have anything to do with anything else, or is this pretty much scandal that's going on within police departments, nationwide?
Well, great example, right? So great example. We have a new mayor when all this happened, elected Democrat. Before that, we had a Republican for our city, and all of a sudden,
you say what city it is?
Yeah, the city of Dunwoody. It's in Georgia. It's just north of Atlanta.
Okay.
The chief is Billy Grogan, if people want to send him mail. But I think his email is actually, he has a website. It's billyjgrogan.com, because he sells email templates on his stupid website. So anyway, regardless, exactly.
He's known. I'm gonna have somebody make me a bucket of popcorn here real quick.
The funny thing about this guy, like let's be real. The funny thing about this guy is like he like got awards for being the social media police chief. Yeah, I ran circles around him, and he hates it. I ran circles around him. I mean, like, he has a book that he sells, and this is hilarious. It's on Amazon right now. And if you go in the stupid little 80-page book or whatever, if you buy this book, and it's how to use social media as a law enforcement leader or something. This guy, you read the number, like one of the first ever 5-star reviews, it's the lieutenant. He's like, great book, chief, would buy. It's like,
oh my God.
Like, I'm like, oh my God, his name is on your book forever. But like, this guy, something that we know that like has I think just eaten him alive is like, he's known for being the social media police chief and the power of social media and transparency and talking to the public. Y'all, I posted on TikTok. Like, I just went to TikTok. Like, I didn't, but then I realized that that's something else that he hated. We beat him at his own game. Like, he tried to go to the AJC and say, oh, Officer Handel was fired because of he was not truthful. And I was like, he's like, they went as far, guys, this is how outrageous this was. They went as far to go and be like, he was never harassed or written up by the lieutenant. Little did they know that I have literal like people that are ready to do depositions that will also say that he was writing me up, but their name had to be attached to it. Otherwise they would get in trouble. But I have an audio recording where he's calling someone, asking them to file a complaint on me. And if they just would have investigated, like we asked them to, they would know that.
Wow.
But they went as far to go to the AJC and out themselves. And so like anyone that spoke that out, that actually knew the truth, like I could just be like, nope, sorry, that's perjury. They can't speak in court.
But now this seems like there's a lot of sexual harassment going on towards men.
Yep.
And I don't think people really think that can happen or that's a thing. I think that there's a whole stigma against men being sexually harassed, but I mean, those text messages and those advances are pretty harassing, right? I mean,
well, like, imagine, bro, you are in a group message with this guy, the F boy group. You just get added to it or whatever. Like, and we also found out that he talks about his preference and who he hires and what he likes and stuff like that. Like, literally, it's so funny because if you look at our police department at the time when all this was happening, everyone's like, all y'all are like twins. Like, it's so, but it's really interesting. But or like all y'all look the same or like whatever. But funny enough, he would message these guys and be like, I mean, like beyond those messages, like one of the messages that's just crazy to me. Also, he was taking photos of officers in the bathroom, like of their D's, like over the while they were using the
wait,
urinal.
that's like completely illegal.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
How did those officers feel about that though?
Bro, they didn't know until we found out later because he sent it to people like an idiot. And so then later on, when we all started gathering evidence together, we're like, "Hey, look at this picture he sent me of this other officer peeing in the urinal." Funny enough, that same officer, he he messaged this too. This is crazy. He was like, he sent a picture of him like someone like somewhere that was posted on social media by some citizen, and he cropped it out and sent it to everybody and was like, "Look at that bulge in your pants." And the officer's married, right? And he's heterosexual, married, and he's just like, "Hey, he's like, ha ha," like, and so like, there's a couple other people in this message, other officers, and they're like just like randomly, like they'll say like ha or K or like ha, like they just don't want to they just want to keep the conversation going and be involved, so that way they don't get targeted too.
Yeah,
so they just kind of
course.
are there, right? So they're like, yeah, ha ha, and then he's like, "Oh, geez, no," or something like that. And I haven't even read this one in so long. And then like the response essentially was like, "Oh, let me see that package, and when can I see your bulge, and come over here," and like he was like telling officers, like, again, like, "Come suck me off." Like, it was like, bro, and like, let's just imagine also somewhere else in this city, I'm just driving around doing whatever. I have not a care in the world. I didn't know. I just knew they were targeting me for BS. Like, I just knew I was being continually harassed. And the reason why they would write me up, guys, and this is what we realized for the way that their grooming worked, was they would write you up to a point that you had no other option. You would come to the lieutenant and be like, "Hey," because your supervisors would literally always tell you the same thing. I had two different supervisors assigned to me that both tried to help to at least, be fodder and try to, get rid of some of it for me. But they would tell me, just play the game, fly under the radar, right? And I tried because I didn't know anything else. I didn't know what was going on. But like, this lieutenant was like targeting people to the point where you had to come to him. You'd be like, "Hey, Lieutenant, I keep getting written up. What can I do to like not be written up?" And then he would bring you in buddy and be like, "Oh, you're a great officer." And like, "Oh, no, you're a great officer. Come on. And then you'd end up hanging out with him outside of work. So at some point, alcohol would be involved, and at some point, it would divulge to you were added to this group. Like, there's a picture out there that I refuse to look at, but I know it exists, of like 5 officers working and him. So your boss's boss, so officer level and a lieutenant, out in Nashville, Tennessee, all standing with their pants around their legs, like around their ankles. Like, first off, why y'all going on vacation with this man? Like, you should have been like, "Oh, sorry, I broke my leg today, can't go." Like, but these people were doing this. Like, these guys felt like they had to. They were lying to their wives. They were sexually harassed. They were exchanging photos back and forth, and some of them benefited, because some of the officers were not married. Some of the officers were, weren't straight, and so they were just like sitting there and like, "Hey," they're like, "This is wrong," whatever. But then they would turn around and they would actually get extra jobs, like extra shifts. They would get so they're benefiting financially. They would get commendations. One of the best things about this is when they wrote the AJC saying that I made everything up, they're like, "And Espinoza has never shown any proof of promising commendations if you exchange photos with him." Okay, well, I got like 4 text messages that say like, "Hey, I'll write you a guard if you send me your dick." Like I know for a fact that those are real. So he did. Like, we know he did.
So is this happening to female officers as well? I'm just curious if they think that it's
No, just men. And
this is just in your department. This was just in your department, though.
Yeah, this is just the city of Dunwoody. But funny enough, while we were revealing what was happening shortly after the George Floyd incident happened, so we spoke out before the George Floyd incident happened. And funny enough, right after the George Floyd incident, the city north of us, it's like our sister city. That's a little bit smaller, but like just our city was only 10 years old, guys. It got this messed up in 10 years. Like it used to be a section of Atlanta, but now it's a smart city, so it formed as its own city. It took 10 years for it to get this bad. Well, the city to the north, Johns Creek, their chief told a female receptionist, or they're called police service representatives, PSRs, told like a PSR to, oh, shut up, this dick ain't gonna like suck itself. Well, guess what? He got like fired like almost immediately. Like, and they like paid off the girl. Situation's over. We're still fighting with the city, guys. It's been over a year. The citizens are still paying for legal defense. And essentially for what? Because we're waiting on the EEOC to finish their investigation. So we're not actually filed in court yet. So for us, the citizens are just waiting, like paying all this money for what? To defend against TikTok videos? Hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Wow.
Like, it's just outrageous. But so talking about like parties and like political affiliations and stuff, like, it's so interesting to me that here we are, like living in this world where like everyone, like working with Congress, everyone agrees that like an officer will be the first one to see another officer do something wrong, right? Like they're going to be there. They're going to like notice it. They're going to witness it, or they're going to find out about it. And everyone's like, where are the good cops? Why don't they say anything? All cops are bad, right? Well, they're not. They're not, because in a case I'm working with right now, we just gave him an award. I think I sent it to you, Ant, was Javier Escueda. Javier Escueda, he was the training sergeant. This guy is a veteran. This guy literally is, and by definition, actually, he used to be a church like choir boy. Like he literally like loves God. He's all about God. He's all about doing the right thing. He believes that, he was in the right place at the right time. And you know where that place was? In his car. He accessed footage of an arrest that someone told him he should access, that he was not supposed to access, only because it wasn't his footage. But he pulled up the system, accessed it, and he saw something outrageous. This man that died in police custody in Joliet, Illinois, they were slapping him, calling him a bitch while he's handcuffed, and they actually pinched his nose while he was trying to get air, so he couldn't breathe. And I honestly do, guys. I believe that most cops are inherently good. I do. They just want to go to work and do the right thing, or at least they try to, for the most part. But sometimes they get roped into all kinds of craziness. Well, Javier,
Sure.
this destroyed his faith in law enforcement, because you know what he did? He tried to report it. They told him they were going to write him up because he shouldn't have accessed that footage. So he leaked it to the media. He is now arrested, or they indicted him, essentially, so it's technically an arrest, on 4 felony counts of official misconduct. And they just finally, stripped him of his gun and badge and put him on administrative leave. And they just gave him just like 2 or 3 days ago, gave him notice that they were going to substantiate the violations and pretty much terminate him, and then he'll have to go to criminal court. But for 4 felonies, all because he released the video to the media, which should be fine in the first place, because it should be, it's public access, right? Like this.
Right.
That's why they have footage.
Right. Exactly. Like
body cams, get FOIA for all this, right?
Help. Well, that's the funny thing. So people requested the footage, right? They're like, we want, did FOIA requests, and they said, oh, well, because it's an active investigation about how he died, we can't release it. It's like, no, it's because you had an officer slapping this man in the face in the back of a patrol car, handcuffed, as he's gasping for air, calling him a bitch. Like that's what happened. Like, let's be real. And so he, his career is like, obviously at this point come to an end. But he is very adamant. He talks about like, I refused to not do something. Like I just did this, to honor the life of the man that I didn't know.
Right.
Because he didn't know this guy. He didn't know him at all. He just saw this video and was like, that's not right. And he did what anyone should have done, which was try to hold them accountable. When they wouldn't do anything, he released it to the media. And now he's sitting on 4 felony counts. And the officer that did that is not. So
So is all of this kind of coming out now just because of between the body cams and social media and more brave people willing to come forward?
I
I'm
would
sure that
say
it didn't just start happening.
Well, so when it comes to whistleblowing, you typically have three tiers of people. You have, or like in most government activity, um, you have like the chickens on the ground. They're typically like those are the people that are like actually committing the crimes. They're the ones that wish they could fly, and so they're desperate and they're trying to pretend that they're eagles when they're not. You have like pigeons that fly in the middle that just like are here. They notice what's above them, they notice what's happening below them, but they just want to fly their course, keep their job, and just get paid. They won't do anything wrong themselves, but they certainly won't stand up against it. And then you kind of have like hawks or eagles that fly high and they're like, no, that's wrong. Typically, you have to motivate the chickens to become pigeons for the pigeons to become hawks. And so people get it messed up a lot of times. They're like, there are no good cops, or like, oh, no, it's just they haven't been given the proper opportunity. Guys, in 2005, the Supreme Court ruled against whistleblowers. People don't know that. Only police whistleblowers, believe it or not. It was called Garcetti versus Sabala. And the short version of that case is that essentially law enforcement officers, when testifying in court, do not have freedom of speech. And so the appeals court ruled in favor of the officer, and the Supreme Court ruled on a split decision 5-4 that against the officer, saying that he does not have freedom of speech. So what happened was he spoke out against a police matter that he witnessed. He testified that would happen in another department, and his department turned around and terminated him. So he was like, I have freedom of speech and I was testifying in court, whatever. Well, they said after that technically, since police officers know when they start the job that they are going to testify in court, that's considered job duties. And since it's considered job duties, you do not have freedom of speech while working for the government because you're a government agent, right?
But you're under oath.
Well, yeah, you are, but you don't have freedom of speech. So they didn't ask him like specific things. They let him give a testimony. And so
it's part of the testimony, isn't that kind of under perjury?
Is his opinion of what happened? Well, exactly, right? So, and that's the other thing. Like most people don't know. You guys, I'm sure, do, but most people don't know. Like your freedom of speech protections are from the government, not from other individuals.
Right.
And so, like, something I used to say when I was working as a cop is I'd be like, well, if they're going to take my income tax, I should get freedom of speech. Like, because I'm still working for the government, but dang, the government's still taxing me. But yeah. It's crazy to know about that case, because everyone points to the whistleblower law of 1986 and they're like, oh, aren't you protected under that? Everyone is, but law enforcement. And the Supreme Court pretty much put in their dissents, they're like, hey, it's not that this is right, this ruling, but like until legislation passes to make this like actual, because their job is to decipher the legislation that's in place, not to make decisions based on ethics. And so we can't do anything about it. Well, that was 2005, guys, and nothing happened, right? You look at what happened with Frank Serpico, the New York PD whistleblower back in like the almost 2000s, but like the 80s and 90s. Like Frank was shot. And like most police whistleblowers either have their livelihoods threatened, you lose your job, or you have your life threatened. All Frank, essentially did, and this is not a very great account of what happened, but like he reported how the cops were working with the gangs. So, and he spoke up again, and he wouldn't like get in on the take. They couldn't blackmail him and do all this other stuff against him. And so what happened? He responded to a call, and they had set him up to get shot. He knocked on the door of this apartment building in New York, hey, police department, and he got shot. And it was a setup. And after that, we had the Knapp Commission, where they instituted all these changes for police reform and to protect ethical police officers. And that was like in the 80s or 90s. Well, that didn't translate across the nation. That just happened in New York. All these other departments across the country don't have those protections. And so it's really interesting. So like Georgia, right? All my TikTok videos, everyone all the time is like, what about the police unions? There's not one in Georgia. There's not a union at all in Georgia.
Yeah.
We have no police union. Like, so, and we're a work at will state. So it's even worse, because it's like, not only do you not have protections or someone to follow up and check and make sure that they did the right thing, you're a work at will state. So you can essentially be fired for anything.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong. And so what do you do? What would you have us do? And so just going back to Garcetti real quick, we call it the Garcetti trap, because what came of that was something really interesting. not only did you lose freedom of speech, but departments across the nation typically instituted a duty to report policy. A duty to report policy is like a policy to you have a duty to report misconduct, and almost even plenty of employers do. Like you have like a duty to report misconduct. But interestingly enough, a lot of places that you look and see that, you won't find a duty to investigate misconduct. You'll find a duty to report misconduct. So why do officers, like, all of a sudden, if they know something's going to go down, why do officers call out of work? Why do officers disappear? Because they don't want to report it, and they have to if they see it. Because with a duty to report, what happens is if you report it, then they know you're outing yourself. They know that you're going to report something if you see it. But they have no duty to investigate it, no duty to follow up on it. And most of their systems are set up in a way that, like, it's just like they can also hold you accountable if you don't say something. It's like a social credit theory. Like, if you don't report your neighbor for being suspicious, then you also are in the wrong. And it's just like that, because I know that's something that kind of like is taking effect in China now. So, like, these officers are really at a loss because the departments across the country have that now. Like, they have a duty to report. So officers can't speak out because it's now officially in their job duties. You have a duty to report in your job duties. And since it's in your job duties, you don't have First Amendment protections.
So you said earlier on that you were working with Congress to do police reform. Is this the same mainstream media police reform that they mention all the time, or is this a different kind of legislation?
So the legislation has transformed a lot ever since we started working with like in the last like few months. We got in touch with like the people that were working on it. Our nonprofit signed on board, like with Frank Serpico signing this letter to Congress, and we got in touch with the Government Accountability Project, who they helped kind of garner the first whistleblower law in 1986. And we were like, we want to do something about this. And so we started reaching out, and we started posting on TikTok a little bit. Got some traction here or there. The hardest part was getting Ant to do a video, but which he did eventually. It is what it is. I mean, it's not his fault, y'all. He is probably the most busiest person out here. But
call his ass out. I love it.
He goes, well, I'm still mad at him. I told him.
Hey, no,
I told you.
I had to do my own research first on Officer Ash before I just did a random duet video like 100 other people want me to do.
People be trying to trick us, Officer Ash. They try to trick us.
I know.
He won't even duet us.
Try to trick me.
You're lucky. He won't even duet Cat and I.
Oh no, you guys, y'all. Look, we're gonna digress for just a minute, because let me tell. I told you, I was gonna tell this story too. Yes. I told you, and we were Snapchatting about this.
Yes.
This man goes, yeah, I want to talk about your story and stuff. Let's do a live on this day at this time, right? We go. This day and this time comes, y'all. I messaged this man 5 times throughout the day. I'm like, hey. And I can't even sometimes, like, I'm late everywhere, but I'm like, I'm really trying because we have all this stuff going on. I was like, I really need more people to see what we're doing. So I was like, hey, this is what we have going on. Like, are you still going to do it? And he's like, yeah. Okay. Later happens. The
Instagram Live.
I'm literally sitting here. The time comes and I'm like, I'm live.
I totally forgot,
like,
y'all.
Hey,
I totally forgot.
It's going to be a while. Like, what's your favorite color? And he's over here like, and I'm messaging him. I'm like, hey,
I'm surprised.
You coming? He goes
up tonight.
Oh, he goes.
I would have ditched you so hard.
Well, like he was like, he goes. Yeah, it's gonna be like 5 minutes.
No, that's not what happened.
Oh yeah.
I believe it.
Sorry, he maybe said a few minutes. He goes, it'll be a few minutes. Something happened. And then later I message him, and I don't want to be annoying because I'm like, you don't want to burn a bridge either side.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
he's whistleblowing you now, Ant.
I know, it sucks. This sucks.
And he goes.
You messed with the wrong one, Ant.
He messaged me later. He messaged me later. He goes, yeah, something came up.
I used the Brady
button. It's like 3 hours later. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he was taking a shit is really what he meant to say.
Oh my God. You know what's messed up? No, you know what's really messed up? I see him 3 hours later live. I'm like,
live? Was I live?
Yes, you were live. So I'm in your comments. I'm in your comments like, hi, hey, here I am. Woo, what's up?
Listen,
and he did the thing that he does, which you guys know he does, where he goes like, oh, I didn't see that comment. Just reads the next one.
That's how he sees my comments.
You guys, this is horrible. Listen. I have to defend myself on this one because not only Ash, but my friends, Tex and Kit Kat, gave me shit before. Y'all, if you would love to see my message section.
We know.
And then wait.
I don't have popcorn, but I got M&Ms.
Yeah, please eat your damn popcorn. And then if you would like,
I'm ready for this show.
Wait, hold on. I wish every single day out of almost 800,000 followers on TikTok, I would like to put into categories those that want to do those. Are you guys are still eating? Good. Those that want to do charity events, and then those that want me to have them on live, and then those that want me to do a duet video or a Stitch video, and then those that hate me because I didn't do a duet and a Stitch video, and then when we have somebody on like this guy named Monty, and he was a complete fraud. And then,
who's Monty?
Yeah, I have no
idea. Is Monty?
Well, that's the point. I think he said he was a fraud, so he doesn't really know.
So it's hard to vet and get through. Like
we know it is,
bro. But you told me you would, bro. Like you should. You were like, oh, you're like, I'm
He's
going
like,
to.
No, man,
and
we're
like,
not cool.
And like he goes, I messaged him the next day. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. Maybe one day. And what Ant doesn't know is on the back end, the Government Accountability Project was gonna was talking about like either sharing his video and trying to pass it on, like the Dual Live and stuff, and like so there was like people in the government. There's people in the government waiting for you. And I'm just over here like, hi, everyone. What's your favorite color? And he messages me the next day, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'll do it still one day. And like a month later passes, and me messaging him randomly, reminding him. I'm like, and finally I go, you know what? Hey, Ant, I'm about to go in, like talk to like a congressman's office. Can you maybe do at this video? He goes, what do you want me to do again? I was like, oh hell!
That's why we call him Hollywood.
And then he finally did, and I said, thank you. And then he said, now you got to do something for me. I was like, oh hell, here we go.
I'm on the podcast.
And he's like, I need it now.
You want to go on the podcast? Yeah, it like literally. He's like, what are you doing?
And I need it right now.
Took you 3 months, but I need it now.
Well, no, then I did some investigation and he was a legit person. So I was like, you need to come on the podcast. This is better than just IG Live.
Absolutely.
This is true. So what happened with, what's this Monty guy real quick? Let's digress.
We don't know who that guy
Who's
is.
Monty?
Who's Monty?
You said this.
Here, this sums it up right here. Scott sums it up big time right here.
Monty was / is a douchebag.
No, it's just
look, he was running for a seat, or he claimed that he was running. He was trying to like get involved more with politics, and he had started a hashtag on TikTok that he's very, very proud of.
What's his hashtag?
America Proud. Have you ever
I feel like some like random girl out there that's like celebrating 4th of July is gonna use that hashtag. Like,
right.
Like fireworks, America Proud. Like what?
Thank you.
But he came on the show, and the day of the show, we're like flipping through his TikTok, and I'm like, why is he sharing the Gateway Pundit article from our event that we all did? So he took an article that me and Ant were interviewed from an event that me, Ant, Tex, and a friend of ours, Paris, had organized together, like a Be Seen, Be Heard event in Florida. Mm-hmm. He took the article from Gateway, shared it, and was like, it's so amazing to see the America Proud movement go global. Like, and when we had him on the show, he was like, that was the best video that you guys could have made for it. And I'm like, bro, but it wasn't for you.
We're like, we didn't even know who you were until 24 hours ago.
And now he's like in love with us and won't stop, and he creates lots of
just you. He's done with me and Ant. He likes kitty cat.
Yeah, he likes to harass
when he made that video like kitty cat, I'm like, ugh.
And then I look.
Oh, he made a video. Oh,
well, he's made lots for kitty cat.
Stop.
So the point is,
it's all fun and games until you see the
let's circle back.
We're gonna circle back. The point is, we have a lot of wild things happening all the time. So my apologies to you, Ash. I'm glad that I've been able to.
Did you read that, Ant?
What does it say?
If I have to hear his supposed famous audio one more time.
Who's supposed famous audio?
Monty, though.
Your boy Monty.
You already forgot him again.
Oh, here we go
Who's
again.
Monty?
I can't.
So this,
By the way,
whole,
I will never.
Hey, you know that forgetting
Let's
things
get
that
back.
fast is a
Let's
sign
get
of
back.
dementia.
I'll
right?
never be able to like look at anybody that's named that again. Like if I meet somebody, they're like, "How you doing? My name is Monty." I'll be like, and I'll just walk away.
Just gonna like be
They'll
driving, see a
idea
Monte
why.
Carlo.
so we do have a couple people that came in late. And one thing I would recommend to the people that come in late is rewatch this entire podcast from the start, because Officer Ash's story is mind-blowing to say the least.
I have like a question though,
Absolutely.
which is how can I help?
Right.
How can any of us help? Like what is like, how can we support you the best way to get your, I mean, besides Aunt, like me and Tex are here for you. So
And we'll be there. Like
I'm just kidding, Aunt.
We'll pick up like we'll all say we're gonna meet somewhere. Aunt will show up like 2 weeks later and be like, "Oh, sorry, Monty stopped me."
Hey, but if you roll out the red carpet for Aunt, he's on time every time. It's weird.
I hate you guys today.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah. So like, and before I answer that question, I just kind of want. Are we in a time crunch or not?
No, we can go. I mean,
Okay, cool. So I just want. I do want to.
But everybody can.
I want to just give a little bit of info about some of the stories out there before I kind of say how everyone can help. So there's an officer in this country that is in Ohio, that a small police department in Ohio, a rookie police officer, a female officer, who was sexually assaulted by a detective at a police function. And she was indicted. She was arrested again for, they said she was lying about it, that she was untruthful. This detective donates like $10,000 to the police department every year just so he can be a detective. There is a sergeant in Louisiana that has left law enforcement, come back, and I think is leaving again, who she was watching. She was in the jail this night, and she was watching the camera footage. And she saw in the camera footage how deputies or jailers were putting drugs on inmates in the jail, planting it. She reported that. And she got written up because they were like, "You didn't tell us you knew how to access the camera footage. What the hell?" So she's like, because she had come from another department where she knew how to access the camera footage. Like she knew how it worked. And so she was put in trouble because they didn't know that she knew how to access it, because had they have known that, they never would have put her in the tower. There's an officer in Arkansas. I was contacted actually by his family, that his family works for the IT department for the same government that he works for, the police department. And he was like, "They're trying to get rid of my dad. It's really weird. The chief and the deputy chief resigned. I don't know what's going on." And he downloaded, like, because when the chief and deputy chief resigned, he had to download their hard drives, right? Like for government records. Mm-hmm. Now he should have done this, but he was like, and so he opened the records. He downloaded the copy of it, and he went in because it was his dad. Like he was like, I want to, like, they're trying to get rid of my dad. What's going on? He found like this whole conspiracy level emails talking about how they were going to fire this guy. They just didn't like him. Like, and so it's just, again, so many abuses of power. And then you see by commanders, not by officers, commanders. Officers can't do anything about that. But one of, what's outrageous to me is a story out of South Dakota. Guys, this is a tiny police department. And this officer is sitting there one day, and someone comes in to file a report. And they're like, "I have a huge crime I need to report." So the officer's like, "Okay, what happened?" And she's like, "There's an officer on the drug task force that is demanding that I continue to have sex with him to keep my son out of jail." So again, you already realize, like, that means that she has, right? And she's like, "I just want help." And he goes, "Oh, hold on, let me call Chief whoever," right? And she goes, "Honey, it is Chief." And he goes, uh-oh. So he says, "Take this folder of photos and go to the state patrol office now as fast as you can and tell them." So she did. No one has ever seen those photos ever again. And so the mayor, he reported it up. The mayor called this young lady and was like, "Hey, what happened? Like, did this actually happen? What?" And let also know that the mayor and the chief were romantically dating at the time. But the mayor and the chief are investigating this, and they're like, "What happened to these documents?" And she just wouldn't answer the phone. All of a sudden. Now remember, the chief has been showing up, forcing her to have sex with him. So he knows where to go when this comes out, right? So like, that's why she's not going to answer the phone. Like, he's probably already threatened her. That same chief, when they were investigating like an arson one time, and what had actually happened is crazy. So there was a lot of domestic disputes at this house in the city they were working in, and so my dog is moving my light over here, and so he responded to this domestic because it's such a small department, the chief of police, and people were arguing, and like it was just really weird. And the officer that was there was like, "This is really strange." Well, it turns out that what had happened was the husband came home and found that the chief had been sleeping with this lady and was really mad about it. So he was like, I'm going to send this to like this video footage of you doing this on duty and all this crazy stuff, and freaking out and like having violent outbursts to, the state patrol office. So the chief set the house on fire. And like, whenever the arson investigators were able to recover parts of the video, they requested it from police evidence, right? So that way they could access the video footage. And the chief was like, never mind. No, we don't know where they went. They're missing. Like, what? So this is a small town, middle of Hodunk nowhere, right? They got like 5 officers. So, but like, still, look, our department was a new department that was only 10 years old, and look at how bad it got messed up. Had we not have stopped it, it would have been way worse. And we still probably don't know exactly all the craziness that happened when it came to like children and targeting and stuff. But the forensic psychologist, right, out in California, a little bit different because it's a correctional system, but she is a civilian employee that works for the correctional system. And her name is Dr. Tristan Ingalls. She pretty much, she's on TikTok too. She walked in to, and she just recently started saying that we could actually start talking about her story because she was afraid. She's been suing them for 3 years, still suing them. Because 3 years ago, she walked in to essentially an attempted murder set up by other correctional officers to murder a correctional officer using an inmate. And she was like, oops, like what the heck is happening? And so it didn't happen. She filled out a report and she went to court on it one day. And they're like, can you testify that this is what happened? And she looked at the report and she goes, no, that's not my report. And they had fabricated a report, rewritten it on the computer, and then forged her signature on it and wanted her to testify to it, thinking that she would in court say, oh yeah, that is what happened. And then, oh, no further questions. Then she'd get off the stand really quick. But she read it really quick and it was not her report. And so she said, no, that's not my report, whatever. And so they retaliated against her pretty much for 3 years because she got a lawyer fast. She was smart. She was finally terminated like a week ago, finally. And you'll never believe what for, of course, untruthfulness. So she goes, they went to her house and asked her and said, hey, and this comes literally right after they finally were like, we might have enough information to finally make arrests on these people. Like that's what the prosecutors had told her. And she's like, great. And they're like, it's all because of your testimony. She had given a new testimony recently that like, I guess blew the lid off this thing. And she's like, okay, great. That's awesome. All of a sudden they show up at her house and fire her for dishonesty, I think is what they call it out there. And what she was dishonest about, guys, they said, are you going to teach this program to the inmates, like psychology program, like therapy program this year, like that you always teach? And she goes, I wasn't really planning on it. But you guys can have the pamphlets. And they said that by her providing the pamphlets, that means that she was already preparing to teach it and that she was lying about whether or not she was going to teach this course. And so she needed to be fired. Like, and also interestingly enough, another interesting story about this young lady, this freedom fighter, is that she also had to, like, for 3 years undergo all this harassment retaliation, right? They didn't stop when she got a lawyer. They kept going. So, because out there, it's just that bad. And so she, with the correctional system, she actually ended up in the yard with the inmates, like between her, like she was up against like the chain link fence that had like a padlock. She had like closed the padlock and she has to cross the yard to get into the facility, right? Well, all of a sudden, as soon as that happened, that padlock got locked, all the inmates came out. And the chief like gets on the PA and is like, sorry, I only protect employees that actually work for me. Because she was a civilian employee. She wasn't on his payroll. She was on the payroll for the state. And left her out there for the inmates, like 20 of them, to do whatever they wanted to her. Now, thankfully, she made it inside. But still, that's terrifying, right? And it's a power play.
It doesn't matter that she made it inside. I mean,
anybody. I mean, hell, you put me in front, 20 inmates in front of me, I'm gonna be like, oh shit, this is it. You know, like that's a bad day. That's a really bad day. So like all of these, I think that, all of these stories, especially, like, they're really like, they show like this is everywhere. This isn't just a thing in Georgia. This isn't just a thing out in California. It's not, it's up north. It's down
Right.
south. It's everywhere. It's in the Midwest. I mean, it's literally everywhere. But like the fact that I've had people reach out to me, like internal affairs investigators from like Brazil, right? You think of Brazil, you're like, oh, corruption everywhere. I have them reaching out to me saying we're doing a good job. Like, so what? Like, we have ethics advisors from like that work with police departments out in the UK, in Australia, that message me on TikTok and are like, hey, that's awesome what you guys are doing. Really support you guys. A lot of love from Australia, a lot of love from UK. And here we are in Georgia, and even
So
in
that
my
means it's
case,
probably happening there.
what? Like, and here we are in Georgia, and they're like, and you've Dunwoody Police, and Chief Grogan's like, here's how you be a good chief through social media. It never happened. Like, and we have evidence, we have proof. But the funny thing that most people don't understand, they're like, well, why doesn't the FBI come in? Why doesn't the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, come in? Because the GBI, as far as we know, can only come in if they're asked to by the department head. So what do you do when the department head is the one that calls the shots? And what do you also do when the department head determines what's truthful? So the way that I realized, well, the only way you can beat the government, guys, is you do the one thing that they never expect you to. Like, the government will always expect for you to disappear. They're like, we embarrassed you, so you're going to go away, and you just want to move on with your life. And they have more funds than you. So social, like, not like what everyone's talking about, like in media, but let's take it, like, use the term social equity. I, as an individual, only have so much social equity, right? Like, what I say has this much value. Right. But when you have a city council of 10 people, they have 10 people's worth of value, right? And so, like, if they come out in the media and one or two of them are like, yeah, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, it was wrong. Yeah. Nothing happens. But like, you ruin that one person, for some people, they never recover. But what I tell a lot of people now is like, the truth is this: you can fight back. Officers around the country, whistleblowers that aren't even in the industry of law enforcement, are fighting back. And so, like, for our project, the name of our project is the Lamplighter Project. The reason we call them the Lamplighters, and some whistleblowers don't like that we do this, we call them Lamplighters, is because when you look at, because they like the term whistleblowers, right? They want to normalize the term whistleblower. Whistleblowers to us are kind of like people that do the right thing, but they're like referees. They blow the whistle and throw a flag out on a play. And they're like, we need to stop this. And they get everyone's attention by blowing the whistle, right? And then they're like, oh, I hope it stops. But they don't set the rules of the game. The referees can't change the rules of how the ball goes in the goal. Like, it doesn't change anything. But what you can do is you can be a lamplighter. You can light up the darkness so that way the roaches scurry away. And that comes from like a saying that Frank Serpico, the first like NYPD whistleblower, gave, right? That's a derivative of that statement. If you light the darkness, the roaches will always scurry away. And so by being a lamplighter, like, there are lamps across this nation that are being lit. People are speaking up, and you're not alone. They will tell you you are, and they will isolate you, and they will make you feel so alone, because every whistleblower goes through that, every single one. Because you will lose, like, for me, like, they came and took my gun and badge. That was like my identity. Like, but something I tell officers now, that like, I traveled and we shot a short film that we're holding on because of the Congress stuff, because we may add to it, but because of if I end up in Washington D.C. talking. But like, when I was shooting the film, I have a monologue section where it's kind of like, oh, what would you say to the chief if he was here? I think I was in the Redwoods National Forest in California whenever we filmed that section. And it's an adrenaline film. It's about taking your life back. And something I say is, you can take my gun and you can take my badge, but you'll never take away from me the fact that I'm a cop. And all I did was police the police. And there's nothing wrong with that. When I was a cop, I thought there was. I thought it was this weird movement, police the police. No, like, the thin blue line, sadly, is a lie. It's a way for people, like, it's okay to identify with your coworkers. It's okay to have a family at work. It's okay to have people that you have like beliefs with, that you spend time with. It's okay you want to go and you work at Home Depot and you want to have a Home Depot of Connecticut number 734 store flag. Go make your flag. Like, go live your life. But this wall of silence is not to protect you, and it's not to protect other officers. The idea, like, Monday morning, we don't want to Monday morning quarterback other officers. Why? Like, what do we have to lose? Like, we have nothing else to lose, because cop, the very word, means constable on patrol, right? Constables back in history actually were community stakeholders. They were volunteers. They were night watchmen. They were people that dads and brothers and uncles that just walked up and down the street every night and tried to protect the community that they lived in. And now we live in a place where that, cop has become like this us versus them mentality in some places. And not all officers feel that way. They don't. They're, like I said, I believe most officers are inherently good, or they try to be. But we live in a world where like you're brainwashed into thinking that you're not supposed to say anything. You're not supposed to speak up. We are not a country under occupation. Some Americans here will hopefully, obviously, I hope, never experience that. Like, with going to war and stuff like that. But the reality is that we are not a country under occupation. As much as people make you feel like you need to imagine that we are, or the media tells you that, everything is so bad, we have rights. We have abilities that other people don't have. And just because our government is messed up doesn't mean that we should, be afraid of doing something to make it better. Because people will be like, well, what do we do? I love that argument. People will be like, well, there's nothing we could do about this. Why? Because all I did at 25 was post on TikTok. Now I didn't like grow like Ant. I literally remember I saw Ant's account when I posted on TikTok, and then like we had like the same amount of followers. And then Ant does all his Ant videos, and here he is up there, I don't know, doing whatever he does now. And there I am, like, trying to fight the good fight. And they're like, oh, you get 70,000 followers. Ant's over here, like, just flicking his hat and gets hundreds of thousands of followers, which it is, he makes great videos, but still.
It's debatable.
I wasn't prepared for that.
The jealousy that's spewing out of this screen is so ugly.
Well, if you would just,
the jealousy is ugly.
Yeah, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm gonna go mute with.
Oh, no. Oh,
you're going to Monty?
Well, and it's funny enough because, again, Ant did do the video. He's just very busy, and the messages I get, like we were talking about this the other day. He's like, I'm probably busier than you are. I was like, probably, but I doubt that Ant's messages are like, oh my gosh, they're trying to cover up this murder. My messages are like,
but a lot of ours are like,
crazy.
If you don't do this, or if you don't help us, like,
you will be murdered.
Really, yeah, like,
they're like,
yeah.
I get fucking death threats, bro. Like,
yeah.
Oh man,
I out against the governor, and all of a sudden death threats come.
Like, people who want me to duet or stitch their videos, they can straight get fucked, because like I'm sorry, I don't have time for it. Like,
like
no. And the thing is
right?
Like, people here, look, all jokes aside, like, it's funny, like, of course, but I've talked to Kat about it and text about it. Like, at the end of the day, people think that I owe them something, and I'm just speaking for myself, not you, just TikTokers in general. Think that I owe them something because I have X amount of followers. I don't owe them shit. I don't owe anybody an explanation for anything. I don't have to do anything because they don't pay for my TikTok. They don't pay me any money. I am not rich from
no, neither am I.
Like, I live in an apartment in Florida. Like, I'm not rich. None of us are rich. Like, this is not a Hollywood set. Like, we joke around like, ooh, Hollywood. Like, I'm in a 3-bedroom apartment. Like, there's nothing glamorous about it. But we do have to filter. I'll speak for myself. I have to filter through messages, because it's like, people are like, fuck you. You didn't fucking duet my video, motherfucker.
You don't really care. You don't really fucking care.
Yeah, we don't care. You're a fucking clout chaser, bitch. You're a little fat bitch. Like, that's the shit I get. So guess what? I don't owe anybody anything, and I don't have to put anything on my fucking TikTok that I don't want to put on my TikTok.
Yeah,
that's right.
And 9 times out of 10, anybody that sends me a video and says, duet this, I'm going to say, what? Because their content is not what made my content my content.
Yep.
Trust me, I will duet a video if I feel compelled to. Trust me.
Yep.
But like, that's the kind of stuff I get all day. And then I get people, conservatives, that get pissed off because they're like, you're a patriot. You're supposed to share other patriots' content. Get me to 1,000 followers. Get me to 10,000 followers. I'm not going to.
But the thing is that if we're only sharing that, then like, when is it our content.
when's our
It wouldn't
content?
even be our content
Yeah, exactly.
anymore. It would just
Well,
be constant.
Especially with
like,
accounts that get taken down is the new big thing when
Yeah.
and it
when accounts
sucks
get taken
because
down.
there's
Oh, you're
so
supposed to help
many
them get back
different
up. It's like
things
if
to
you're as good of a
cover
creator
it
as what
out.
you say you are, or you think you are, get yourself back up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you
look,
know, go ahead.
yeah, no, I feel bad.
No, we know that you were giving him a hard time, but
Oh yeah, I'm not
it was
talking
a
about
good
Officer
place
Ash.
to do it.
I'm just saying in
like,
general, like I'm glad that I was able to vet him properly and talk to him, and my bad for skipping a beat, but yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that we get on our end too, and it's just it kind of goes. It's kind of goes to show like what kind of country we live in, because look, you're exposing a lot of stuff that you've seen and dealt with in our policing. It's stuff from our own people, our own followers, our own fans, our support systems, and we get these hateful messages because we're supposed to lift them up, and if we don't, then I'm coming to kill you. Like, what is going on right now in this country? Like, is that everybody has just lost their fucking minds?
Well, that's the reality, right? Something I used to tell a lot of people as a peace officer is like, we have a mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis. Like that's what the issue is. We have a mental health crisis.
The biggest one is
like
liberalism.
Yes.
So I'm working with the
it's going around right now.
On our bill. I'm working
the
with
biggest
the
disease out there.
So I'm just gonna be like, but like, it's just we live in a world where people like don't know that it's okay to have a differing opinion, as you guys know. It's okay to not be forced to do something. And in piggybacking, and yes, I know that Ant knows I was giving him a hard time, but piggybacking off something that he said is, you don't, and this is something that does piggyback also into like, talking to whistleblowers out there and people that are debating, becoming lamplighters, even outside law enforcement. Like, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You don't. The world will tell you have to, because everyone wants to know, why did you do this? Why did you? No, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You don't even really have to explain yourself to yourself, as long as you know what you did. Because you can always sit there and you can second guess your actions. You can look back on it. People will want to know why, what made you do this? What made you think about this? Whatever that was in the moment, why you did it. And that's all that matters, because those people are not going to be there. I thought for sure, like the isolationism that whistleblowers face, like I thought like these people were going to have my back, that I was going to talk to these people. There's people in that department that I thought I was like best friends with, I haven't talked to since, because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. But like, there's other people that, like, I just realized that they just don't care. It wasn't them, so whatever. And then there's people there that like, you just wind up in this place, guys, where you're like really alone. And so there are whistleblowers out there. And if there is one, even just even that maybe here comes across even just part of this message, is it's just like, I've been there. Like, I know what it's like. I don't even drink a lot, but I'll tell you what, that week I did.
Oh, shit.
I was like, oh man, I had family and friends that came and found me, and I was like not passed out. I was in my house. I didn't go anywhere. But like, I was like not even like thinking. Like, I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything crazy, but like I way overdid it. And like, it's because I didn't know who I was. And it goes hand in hand with this. People in this world will set boundaries for you, and you'll set boundaries for them, and also for your employer and your friends. You'll set boundaries. You'll be like, this is what I believe in. Relationships are a great example. Don't cheat on me. And you'll define what cheating is, right? And then let's say your significant other goes out to the bar and they're like, hey, I got drunk and I made out with this other person. And you're like, that's messed up. And so you forgive them and you give them wiggle room, right? You're like, we can get through this, but don't ever let that happen again. Well, what happens to you as an individual? You have boundaries. For some people, it's, I'm going to make sure my clothes make it in the hamper. For some people, it's, I'm going to go to the gym every day. When you allow people to have wiggle room in your life, you're going to surely give wiggle room to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that carries on into like, obviously into everything that we see across, the nation right now. Like, no one wants to hold themselves accountable. No one wants to have boundaries and be like, no, that's not okay. I don't have to explain myself. No, I don't need to do that. And so I think that it is scary, all the crazy messages we get from all kinds of people, y'all, like all kinds of people. But at the end of the day, even as many times as we're going to think about this great interview, like, and just hanging out on this podcast, like, and having like laughs, like, at the end of the day, it's us, we get to look back on our lives and say, hey, we made a difference and we talked about it and we chose to. again, sitting in a place where we don't have that much money. Don't let the lights behind me that look nice fool you. This is held together with fishing line. Okay. So like, and it didn't hold for a very long time. Like, it's the reality is like we are just people.
Yeah.
But
I think the biggest thing that we can do in our country right now is really get Governor Abbott out of office in Texas, and then from there we can work on
not about Abbott every single.
Oh,
hey,
Cat.
you just ask good old Joe to drive down there in his 18-wheeler, and he might. Just take care of it for you.
Well, maybe
Hey,
he can
Cat,
wheel
you know
him
what-
into the Rio Grande.
you know what
I mean,
gets
he's in
me
the
through
wheelchair and
every day
everything.
now?
So
You know what gets me through every day now, Kat?
What?
It's fine. None of this is real.
None of this is real.
Like, it's fine, you guys. Like, this whole
So
thing
Abbott
is
can
not
really
real.
stand up?
Probably. That's
Oh.
how I mean. When me and Ann are freaking out about the country.
Is that what you're
just remind
saying,
each other
Ann?
that all of
Hot
this
Wheels
is
can stand up?
He could stand.
Yes.
Oh my
He's gonna
god.
get a
So,
restraining order.
Officer Ash, I think I really, I'm so grateful that you came on today.
Me too.
Yes.
I'm glad that I
Absolutely.
finally got my head out of my ass and got you on the show today.
So are we.
And we would love to have you again.
But I'm
So-
glad that you waited until now, though. Like,
Mhm.
I am. Like, this was a really cool experience for me, too. But you gotta, like, what is your foundation? Like, is it Lamplighters? Like, that's the foundation that you guys have going now?
So the way that you can support whistleblowers around this country, and also with everything we're trying to do in Congress, is like I try to share some videos on my page with their stories. I talk to them, I interview them weekly and stuff, and we try to put them in our film. We try to write stories on them. But our nonprofit is the lamplighterproject.org.
The Lamplighter?
thelamplighterproject.org. You'll see that we have a form on there for officers to fill out anonymously, law enforcement officers if they need to, but also a contact form. We are not, sadly, accepting donations yet because we want to make sure that we make that entry right and that money is used properly. So we want to make sure our finances are set up the right way. But what you can do in the meantime is you can share stories. You don't have to share my TikTok videos, although I'd love for you to. You don't have to. Like, you can go to the Lamplighter Project's page. You can go to hashtag whistleblowers and look for one. Like, people are out there are good people. And I used to be, essentially, although I was a police officer child, I was nervous, scared. I would be talking about this. I remember my first podcast interview. I stuttered like I was probably in the Arctic tundra. Like, I couldn't even form my ideas. But here we are now, and I'm talking to congressmen, and I joined this meeting the other day, and they were like, "Oh, hey," I turned my camera on, and they're like, "Oh, Austin decided to join us. You've been on my For You page," and I'm like,
It's so weird, isn't it? Like, when it's that's a weird experience.
Yeah, it is.
And you guys also have to know, again, I love everything you guys are doing. I appreciate that you let me come and just hang out and be here and stuff. And I would love to be on here again, whether it be talking about this or even just a fly on the wall to give Ant a hard time. Because I think,
we might bring you back just for that.
Just for that.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. And not, we won't talk about that. We'll find new reasons. But
yeah. Well, there's plenty.
Oh yeah, because you're just a walk in the park, Tex. Just a walk in the park. I know. Just an angel.
Yeah, he really is, isn't he?
I just talk shit on Abbott. That's all I do.
Texas. At least someone's walking around in Texas.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Look, I can stand.
I'm done.
Woo-hoo!
I'm out.
Look at those pajama pants, though.
Hey, I can do something. My governor can't do.
Pajama, stand up in pajama pants. You most certainly cannot.
Yeah, no, we can't.
No.
Officer Ash,
Sadly.
Your TikTok is officer.ash, correct?
Yes, because when I first branded myself, it sounded like Office Rash. So a few months ago, I'm be honest. So a few months ago, I added the dot. I had to rebrand myself, so it's officer.ash because I was tired of people being like Office Rash. So.
Oh yeah.
There you go. I outed myself for you, Ant. So that makes up for all the BS.
Well, and then it's a quick link from my page as well, my Just Kit Kat, because I tagged Officer Ash in the promo video. So if you guys can't find him, he is tagged in my last video on the
Awesome.
Just Kit Kat page.
Awesome.
All right.
And
Thanks, guys. And
I just want to tell everybody thank you for you guys that are commenting, and this was a great a better understanding for another part of our government, right? So we've had judges on at this point. We've had people running for Congress on. We're going to have plenty more of that.
Governors.
But, I think I'd seen earlier on, is this political? Everything kind of falls into that political spectrum in some way or another. So this show is about having people from different branches of our government on to talk about their stories.
Absolutely.
So
because it's like our life, regardless if it's political or not. Like we're all people, and we're all
affects us
here together and like work together to make it better.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having like the courage to do what you do, because I think it's like it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. Yeah. It's a weird world we live in, guys, but we can choose to make it better. The government is inherently corrupt, and like it is what it is. Like we can't sit here and pretend it's not. But what we can do is like look at human nature. I'll finish with this: the human nature, right? First act of the Bible talks about human corruption. Like so, like being corrupted by whatever. So you just have to understand that like there's nothing wrong with always looking at what we have and not necessarily complaining, but saying we can do better, because it's our children, it's our grandchildren that will one day like grow up in this nation. And I refuse to let them live in a world where a lieutenant can like pick up a kid behind Best Buy and make him live with them. Like that's just not cool.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
guys, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on.